Oh, there you are. Hello, good morning. What happens now affects what happens later. This is a simple law of nature. When you wake up in the morning, a new day is stretched out ahead of you. How your morning begins can affect how your entire day, even your whole week, unfolds. So the content of the next 3 minutes can affect the quality of the next 7 days, which makes it a good thing that I have something positive for us to think about. And oh, what a coincidence, it shouldn't take much more than 3 minutes. How does it feel when you rush into a washroom only to discover that the person who was there before you didn't flush? How does it feel as you stand there with your desperate need to comfortably use the facilities thwarted by somebody's floating parcel of excremental negligence? And sometimes it's not even in one piece. Sometimes it's all over the place in some nightmarish ship-it-in pattern that will require copious amounts of Dettol to sanitize. I bet you ask yourself all kinds of questions. For example, you ask yourself whoever this culprit may be. I mean, how can people be so thoughtless? So they didn't have 2 seconds to flush the loo before they left? Don't they have any manners? Who raised them? Don't they think of others? It seems like such a simple thing, doesn't it? Just leave the place in the same condition you met it. How difficult can that be? Well, don't be so quick to judge, because in many ways, we are all being totally inconsiderate of those who will come after us. Remember your last day in school or in university? Did you carve your name in the furniture? Did you paint your nickname on the wall? Did you throw some school equipment out of the window or over the balcony? Were you thinking about the next batch of students who will not get to use these things you were vandalizing? When you move out of an apartment, what state do you leave it in? Would you be happy to rent a place in that condition? When you're driving and you roll down your glass to throw out the pure water sachet into the gutter, are you thinking of the family nearby whose home and property will get soaked the next time it rains and the drains get choked? What is our role at work? Do you remember your first week when you were reading through your predecessors' incomprehensible handover notes, when you saw the mess they had made of the filing system, when you wondered how anyone could expect you to function in such a jungle? That was because the person who did your job before you didn't really care about you. But how about you? Do you care about the next person? Do you try to leave things better than you found them? Pastor Mensa Otabil talks of generational thinkers, people who find solutions to the problems of their day rather than pass them on to the children to grapple with. In our own small way, we need to evolve into generational thinkers. As individuals, when we park our cars, we need to remain within the line so that when others come, they can also use the remaining parking spaces. That's generational thinking. As a community, we need to stop sitting around waiting for the government to come and stop us from blocking our gutters with rubbish. Because when the gutters spill over and become mosquito breeding ponds, whose children will get malaria first? Ours or our MPs? When our city floods, whose children will be washed away first? Ours or the president's? As politicians, we need to stop sowing seeds of conflict with the politics of insults that we use to incite people against each other, because if it degenerates into a war, we will have no nation to bequeath our children. As a nation, we need to stop borrowing money at ridiculous terms, doing it without a prick to our conscience, because we know it will be up to our children to pay them back. We need to start taking responsibility for our successes and failures as individuals, as communities, as businesses, and as a country, because our choices today will shape our children's future tomorrow. So let's make a positive impact on our surroundings for future generations. Let's solve today's problems today so that our children will at least stand a fighting chance of solving their own problems tomorrow without having to worry about ours too. Let's not leave our problems unsolved, floating in the WC of our children's future. My name is Kojo Yankson, and by the time I leave this world, it must be better than I found it. Good morning, Garafo.
Hello, good morning and welcome to the AM News. I am Mapita Sibidi. Now, governing NPP and the opposition NDC have picked the first and second spots respectively on the presidential ballot for the upcoming parliamentary elections. 11 parties and one independent presidential candidate, Alfred Walker, were present at the Electoral Commission to ballot for the spot on the ballot paper. Meanwhile, the Deputy General Secretary of the NDC, Peter Otokono, says the number 2 position indicates the second coming of former President Mahama.
How the MPP pick their results, but they don't know that there is God. There is always God. We are very happy about the number that we have picked. In actual fact, that was what we were expecting. We came in for 2 and we got 2. God has spoken and it's too sure. The second coming of JM, and you know what it means. When you talk about second coming, we talk about return. And yes, indeed, we are really satisfied. We are really satisfied.
With the number, but not the process.
Not the process at all. The process, we've made the point that we are not satisfied with the process. It had an inherent bias, which was introduced by the Electoral Commission. You all saw all over on the cameras how they took the boxes outside, how the MPP were looking for the balls that they think, would give them their number. We all saw it in front of the cameras. So, I mean, the evidence is now replete when we say that the Electoral Commission may be in some criminal collusion with the government to rig this election.
Mr. Otokono, this has been the process in times past. I mean, clearly the EC, Peter McMahon, has been there. And that has been the process.
I'm sorry to disappoint you.
I was there.
Yes, I'm sorry to disappoint you. This has never been the concept. The concept is that it's about picking numbers. You do the numbers in front of everybody. We see the papers and the sizes. You fold them in front of everybody, put them in the box. You do random picking of the ballots for the first phase. Then the second phase, you do the order of the picking. Then you are done. So in this case, nobody can accuse you of bias. And in this case, every element of, lack of transparency would have been removed. But they refused, clearly in front of the cameras. They had absolutely no reason to be doing things in secrecy, to be shouting things in secrecy. So they have been exposed big time. And if we say that the Electoral Commission is in some collusion with the government, the evidence is replete.
Well, the chairperson has rejected it. Now, finally for me, the number 2 on the ballot paper, how is it going to advance the electoral fortunes of the NDC?
God has spoken. We expected number 2. We have gotten number 2. 7th of January, we are swearing President Mahama in as the next president of the Republic of Ghana.
For the governing NPP, the number 1 slot shows that President Akufo-Addo has already secured victory in the upcoming December polls.
It makes it very easier because in terms of all spheres of our economy, we are the number 1. In terms of infrastructure development, in terms of managing the economy well, in terms of getting international recognition, in terms of everything in this country, Nana Addo has paved the way. He's the number 1.
And so would this in any way help the party secure the targeted vote that they want in this election?
This cements it. You see, this cements it because we wouldn't have had any problem being placed anywhere on the ballot because Nana Addo is well known. The NDC people know him very well. They are going to vote for him. Only that God wants to prove to the whole country that the New Patriotic Party is the number 1 party in Ghana. Is the number 1 in development, is the number 1 in bringing free SHS, the one in bringing NHIS, the one bringing almost everything in this country. If you look at all social intervention program, it is the New Patriotic Party, which is number 1.
General, for people on the ballot paper this year, this is unprecedented.
That makes it easier for us. You see, you don't have a problem looking for Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo. You just pick the ballot and it's number 1. You vote.
Are you not worried that the number of presidential candidates?
Well, there are places that there are 70 presidential candidates.
But this is the first time in Ghana. And our people are not used to, looking
that is why we don't have a problem within the numbers, because you take number 1 and the rest follow. You understand? So it could have been 50. But identifying the New Patriotic Party is easier for us because if we had been placed at number 5 or number 6, you have some constituencies that don't have parliamentary candidates and will be moving from the position that we have to other positions. This one, nothing happens. We are number 1. Everywhere you pick, the presidential candidate is number 1. The parliamentary candidates, 275 parliamentary, are all number 1. Number 1 political party.
Mama V and the team will discuss this development further later on the show. Now, flag bearer of the Ghana Freedom Party, Akyem Batabi, is number 5 on the ballot paper for the December 7 presidential election. Arguably, she is the happiest person to make it on ballot after 3 attempts. Georgia Kwabena observes that though Akyem Batabi does not have the support to be president, she teaches us never to give up on our dreams.
Akyem Batabi, the flag bearer of the Ghana Freedom Party, has been flirting with the idea of being Ghana's president for many years. Her journey to be a flag bearer of her party started in 2012, but she was disqualified. She then teamed up with the Progressive People's Party to campaign for Dr. Pakwesi Ndum. Many thought it was the end of her dream, but she resurfaced in 2016, aiming to be Ghana's president. She was disqualified again.
All though
disappointed, Akyem Batabi took the news of her disqualification in good stride, sharing jokes with journalists.
They said they are reading now. Oh, 40 broke crack. Hey,
Akyem Batabi was mocked for her inability to recite the national pledge.
Through the blind, to our palace. I don't know do what of Ghana. So help me, God.
She's still learning how to recite the national pledge. After nursing disappointment of easy disqualifications over the years, she learned from her mistakes and this time around diligently handled her nomination forms. For the first time, she has qualified to be on the ballot paper for the December 2020 general elections.
The 6th first candidate to present nomination forms to the commission was Madam Akyem Batabi. She had no IT issues. However, the team noted that there were a number of the ID cards were repeated, and she was informed about this. And the candidate has therefore been adjudged responsive to the nomination requirements. She has therefore been cleared to contest the 2020 presidential election.
Finally, she has made it. If nothing at all, she has taught us never to give up on our dreams.
Now, a 36-year-old man has been robbed and shot dead at ATONSU in Kumasi. Maxwell Awuto, a resident of Ahinsan Estate, is said to have made an unknown transaction in the area. He decided to visit a friend at a house which was 100 meters away from the crime scene.
Eyewitnesses said they spotted 2 men on a motorbike arriving at the house. One of the suspected robbers, sporting a black T-shirt with camouflage shorts, followed the deceased. Then a loud gunshot sound was heard.
We saw 2 men on a motorbike park and enter. Seconds later, we heard a gunshot. When they came out and I saw a gun hanging in a side coat, I told a friend they were criminals and the residents rushed after them, but they escaped.
But unfortunately, the suspected assailant jumped on the waiting motorbike with a brown envelope and the 2 sped off. Mr. Awuto was found in a pool of blood with a bullet wound on his neck. Reporting for Joy News, Kwesi Deborah.
Now, wife of late Mfantsiman MP Ophelia Hayford is assuring she would do her best to win the seat in memory of her late husband. Ophelia Hayford filed her nomination to contest the seat in the upcoming parliamentary election on the ticket of the NPP. This follows a decision taken by the party's National Executive Committee, the NEC, after a meeting held on Sunday, October 18, in line with Article 12 of the NPP Constitution. Clad in black, with a party-coloured scarf around her neck, the widow was on Tuesday escorted by some party executives and supporters to file her nomination at the EC's office.
Wife of slain MP from Fantaman in a procession from the party's constituency office at the Sorpon bypass to the EC's office. It's been a 3-kilometer walk from the constituency office to the EC office at Sorpon. Family members, party supporters from the constituency and the region took part in the procession as Madam Ophelia Hayford went to submit her nomination forms. She returned from the EC's office beaming with confidence and speaks for the first time after the death of her husband.
Mozikan Medayan or Mampenyin Nana Adodankwa Ase National, Regional, and our constituency in Penyinfo. Our Reshemwa, Wenya Mumu.
First of all, I would like to thank the presidents, the national, regional and constituency executives for the confidence they have reposed in me to represent my husband. Your support has given me the hope that the good works of my husband would be continued. I can now wipe my tears because of what I have seen today. I have seen that I have the support of courageous people. All I entreat you to do is to unite and fight the battle ahead. We can win this seat.
Infantaman Huban, Nabi Biara, Eko Kwanza Hereford, Oyeno, Yabatuado, Nankunim Zenoso Bayenze, Medahonina Ase. The battle is still the Lord's. Medahona Ase, Yami Baye.
Minister for Special Initiatives and MP for Ewutu Senior West, MAVIS HAWA KOOMSON gives an assurance that the Women Caucus of the MPP in Parliament will see a rise in their number.
Kukrudu, Abe Obama Ma, Obama Mema, Ekanka Kunafo, Eni Ejanka, Omomba Ophelia Ebe. Na Women Caucus.
She has come for women and men, especially for widows and orphans. But we, those who form part of the Women Caucus in Parliament, we are 5. We are by thus admitting Ophelia to our caucus. You do know well that I supported the late MP. So if you vote for her and we win, I will extend same support to Ophelia. Together we will help develop Infantaman.
Samota Ophelia Chi. Na nyanyamiya to 7 December. Na nyamisha ni wenu bonyama. Emwebi amedibwa aya eko Hayford. Empuntu awadiba Fantaman. Medeba bwa minua Ophelia.
And that's how we end the AM News with me, Mapito Sibidi. The show continues with Mama V and Benjamin. Enjoy.
Well, welcome to the review segment of our show where we take you through the headlines. We will do international headlines as well, touch base on myjoyonline.com. So if you're just tuning in, you're welcome. Ben and I are going to take you through the papers. Ben will start. Which paper are you starting with, Ben?
I'll kickstart with the Daily Statesman this morning. And on the front page, it says, Akufo-Addo urges Ghanaian businesses to take advantage of AFCFTA. Then there is NPP is #1 on ballot paper. That's got a lot of people excited. Then Ghana first in Africa, third in the world in COVID-19 management. That is according to a Chinese survey, actually. It's called the Yikai. And I'll be sharing my thoughts on that. A good step, positive one for Ghana, but I have my own concerns about, that entity that conducted the study. Where do we start from with you? The Daily Graphic?
Yes, the Daily Graphic newspaper. Here's what's on the front page. Battle lines drawn, 12 candidates pick positions. And they've got pictures of President Akufo-Addo and former President, flag bearer of the NDC, John Dramani Mahama, #1 and 2 on the ballots, as was revealed yesterday on the front page of the paper. Also, government revives affordable housing scheme, 200 units to be delivered yearly. 2017-2018 Agric Census report launched. Also another story in the paper today. So that's what it looks like, the front page of the Daily Graphic newspaper. In the center spread, there is a special feature. It says a must action, sustaining good hand hygiene during after COVID-19 pandemic. So that's what's in the center spread of the paper. And on the back page, President inaugurates Naval Training Command in Volta region, says Ghana deserves better maritime industry. That full story is on the back page, occupying the entire back page of the graphic newspaper.
Let's take you now to the custodian newspaper, and it says, ignore Mahama on election rigging plot, easy to Ghanaians. And that's one story that hopefully I'll get into. Now, the EC's chair has been talking about the matter and saying that, look, there's transparency and all of that in the process, and there is no cause for talking about any rejection of the ballot come election day. But take advantage of, AFCFTA, Akufo-Addo tells Ghanaian businesses. Then President's strong leadership key to COVID-19 success. I was just letting you know about that story, that report from Yikai earlier. Then we're investing in infrastructure, not rearing flying guinea fowls. Baumia replies, Mahama, it appears this guinea fowl thing is not going out of our political space anytime soon. NPA replies, tanker drivers over Hassan Tampuli. And when you go to the back page of this paper, the custodian, it says, Akufo-Addo commissions Naval Training Command in Volta region. Mama V.
Let's do the Finder. Front page of the Finder says, Volta Chiefs praises Akufo-Addo as competent, compassionate, and visionary leader. Also, government will support businesses to take full advantage of AFTA, according to President Akufo-Addo. But the banner headline really is this one, NPP 1, NDC 2, GUM 3 parties express satisfaction with various theories. President Akufo-Addo's strong leadership key to COVID success, according to Information Minister. We're investing massively in infrastructure, not rearing flying guinea fowls. Dr. Baumia replying, Mahama, not sure exactly what former President Mahama said, but that's a jab right there. Maybe there will be another.
There are a number of things that could trigger those replies. You know, when you're talking of achievements, they will always go back to, oh, but we did free SHS. And in our time, there were no flying guinea fowls. So it could be anything, actually.
Yeah. All right. So that's it for the Finder. There are plenty of other stories that you can look at if you're interested.
Mama V, do you believe in omens? Do you believe in
I don't know.
Signs and
I don't know. I don't know. I believe in signs and wonders.
Yes, in the political space.
I believe in the grace and favor. Yeah.
Well, yesterday we all saw what Deputy General Secretary of the NDC, Peter Boamo Tukuno, his antics, if you want to call it that, and I found it a bit. I thought he was being unduly aggressive at a point, unduly
at the beginning of the process.
Yes,
okay.
But I feel he had a point, but the way he conveyed the point was the problem. But do you believe in those? Because number one, I mean, everyone is talking about it. Number one, it means we're going to win. Number two, it's going to be the second coming. And now people are even bringing in national science and math quiz and saying that PRESEC won in 2008 and the MPP lost, and it's going to happen again.
I think it's for the fun of it. I mean, it helps with the campaign. It helps to get people interested in the election proper. Right. I don't think it translates into anything. I agree, though, that the fact that you're first and second, you grab people's attention real quick. So if you go and you're voting, especially when there are 12 of them on the ballots, it makes it easy for you to be identified. But apart from that, I don't know.
Anyway, I don't know how Alfred Walker would feel being at number 12, but the publisher, new publisher.
Which is also easy. Just direct people. Tell them to ignore everybody and just go down there.
To the bottom. It works as well. So Nana picks 1, John picks 2. That's the new publisher. Government adopts KOA mixture after FDA approval. KOA has gone through quite a lot in terms of its products. And then robbers shoot man dead. Now, I'll just say this very quickly. There's another paper, I think it's the Custodian newspaper. It talks about a gospel artiste who actually was robbed on the 20th. Celestine Donko.
Yeah.
And when I read the story as well of this gentleman who had also been gunned down, the security situation. So yes, we're talking about our members of parliament, ministers, and all of that, but the ordinary people are also dying. What happens to them? A concern on my mind.
Good question there. The Daily Dispatch newspaper is the next paper that we're going to. And then we'll come to this other very sad incident of a church building collapsing. We'll give you the latest information and share what we have with you. But let's do the Daily Dispatch newspaper front page. Apart from MPP and NDC presidential candidates, the total votes of the 10 other presidential candidates will not exceed 4%. That's EPHSON making that prediction there. Is it a prediction? Well, full story on page 12. Somebody did post and asked, why do they go through all this when they know that they won't get anything? Like, it will be insignificant. But I guess we also appreciate the other. For instance, Akyem Batabi is so excited, even being on the ballots, coming this far, trying and getting here in the end. Somebody would ask, what is in it for her?
Could I hazard an answer to that?
Oh, yeah.
Political entrepreneurship.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Well, but she's satisfied. So if it makes her happy.
Yeah, she's able to pay with her cocoa business money.
All right. Also on the front page, Asiedu Bekwing asks John Mahama, who will pay the private school teachers if you include private schools in free SHS? All old dam sites in northern region will be cleared, according to the regional minister. They seem to know exactly what they want to do around this time. You know, when it's getting to the end of the 4 years, then we get really creative. Anything is possible. It can be done. That's it for the Daily Dispatch newspaper.
Let's quickly go to the Ghanaian Times newspaper. It says, so on the front page, we'll support businesses for the AFCFTA. It appears to be a replication or duplication of stories across board. COA Mixture FDA cooperation yields results. NPP picks first, NDC picks second slots for December 2020 polls. But when you go to page 3, again on the security beat, yes, we're talking about the 36-year-old man murdered in Kumasi by unknown assailants. But there's this other story. Chinese woman shot and robbed at Ahonjo. And the story talks about how 2 suspected armed robbers in Ahonjo, Kumasi, yesterday actually... It's a terrible situation. You see, we keep reading of these instances.
And killed?
Shot and robbed at Ahonjo.
Oh, shot
so
and robbed.
She made it away with her life, just as Madam Donko did as well. But the problem with security in the country, I think we're downplaying it in many ways when it comes to the ordinary citizen. Of course, we know that even when it comes to policing, you know, the numbers are not anything close to what they should be. I think we have a deficit of around 27,000 per UN standards. And that's something that we should be seeking to close, a gap for the ordinary citizens to have some security in the system, leading to elections and all of these things happening. It's not just the politician we should be thinking.
You know, and I guess that's why we get upset, really, when an incident happens involving a member of parliament and quickly you see the interior minister go to parliament and then they just reach an agreement and something is done. It's not because we hate our members of parliament. After all, they are our representatives. But the fact is, what happens to them also happens to us. Yeah. It happens to us even more because we've had a lot of people being robbed. Look at this incident that happened in Kumasi just yesterday. We're also talking about Celestine Donko, who shared her experience on Facebook. So there's a broader conversation or an issue of security generally. But we can't have our interior ministry only pay attention to the concerns, the security concerns of Parliament. It must be all of us as well. And this is a very crucial time. And it's just that which people get upset about, you know. And we shouldn't get it wrong. We have to talk about what concerns us. People are traveling every day and they come across different issues. Let's do the Daily Guide real quick from front page of the Daily Guide. Lordina is traumatized, says MAHAMA. Well, that was in that interview with Asempa FM. Well, maybe I should say Adum FM, Adum Television, and then Asempa FM. But there's a quote, really. Let's put it in context. So according to former President MAHAMA, there were all sorts of falsehood peddled against his wife when the NDC was in power, and that has made her take a back seat. So here's a quote, and this was being translated in English. She was there when we launched the manifesto and other things. She's given me the appropriate support from the back. And then he goes on to say, but part of it is that when we were in government, a lot of things were said about her that were not true, a lot of lies. She was a bit traumatized by the experience, so she has decided to take a slightly back row and let me do my politics so she can give encouragement in the background. So we won't go through that kind of experience again. Then there was a question of what happens if he wins the December 7 elections. And again, here's the quotes, but again, it's also being translated. When we win, she will play a more back role, unquote. There's a lot more to that conversation. You can grab the paper and read. Also, slain MP's wife files papers. Sanitation Ministry evacuates dump sites. KOA boss commends FDA. And when this issue first started, I guess I was one of those who said, listen, FDA has our general interests at heart. You might want to think all you like, but they're doing this for our good. And it was, you can't fight the regulator. You must work with the regulator. In the end, you see that KOA is commending FDA. So if you took sides, then you see where you will be right now. They did it for, the general interest. I say it, and I'll say it again. It will be difficult for the Food and Drugs Authority to do a total recall, like of all products.
Indeed.
Because they will just take some batch and recall. But if they're recalling all batches, then there must be a critical issue there. And that's what they did. See, we've come and we've resolved this issue.
And that actually brings to mind, the ANAS expose when it comes to quarks in COVID-19. So it is indeed for our benefit, because imagine the number of people who probably had been exposed when it comes to all of those drugs. The final newspaper I'll look at is the Business and Financial Times. Some of the stories are repeated, so I'll not go to them, but it says, President inaugurates Governing Board of RTI Commission. All aged dump sites in Northern Region will be cleared as emergency national refuse evacuation exercise starts. And there's also government targets 40% reduction in housing deficit. That's according to Atachia, the sector minister. But I'm sorry, it appears when it comes to some of these matters, there's been a lot of talk and no walking of the talk. In, successive administrations, we all see them, the housing projects that are gathering dust. On the back page, salt mining receives major boost as Adan chiefs resolve differences, and WAPCO holds free eye screening care for Kpong and Tema Manghian residents. So those are the stories in the Business and Financial Times.
Last newspaper, you've got a last one?
No, the Business and Financial Times was the last one.
All right, the Republic Press will be the last one that I would look at. Auditor General's woes not over as board commences probe into 2.1 million Ghana cedis and $199,000 foreign travel cash. I think we talked about this a bit yesterday. Also lit Mfanseman MP's widow files nomination. Ekufuado is number 1 as Mahama gives hot chase at number 2. Apostle J dodges police prosecutor. You are a competent, passionate, visionary leader. Voter chief to President Ekufuado. So that's how the front page of the Republic Press looks like. These are the stories making headlines. And then on the back page, they've got the presidential candidates and their positions on the ballot sheets.
I guess we're going to delve into the stories now.
Yes,
and I will start with the Daily Statesman newspaper. And since we're talking security, I guess my focus is on that this morning. On page 7, it says, driver jailed 30 years for robbery. So it's not all bad. There are positives to this as well. So Issa Idrisu, a driver, was on Monday this week sentenced to 30 years imprisonment by an Accra Circuit Court for robbing a woman of her car keys and 2 mobile phones at gunpoint at Gbawe in Accra. Now, Idrisu in his robbery attack stabbed one Theophilus Petete, the husband of the complainant, with a knife on his chest. He was held on the charge of conspiracy, attempt to rob, robbery, causing unlawful harm, and possession of arms and ammunition without lawful authority. It said that when the law wants to deal with you, you will actually receive so many charges that there's little room to wriggle your way out. So that's the story there, at least some positives when it comes to security. But finally, on that same page, page 7 of the Daily Statesman, Codeo equips coordinators for election 2020. We're all concerned about that. We want peaceful, transparent, free and fair elections. Now, the Coalition of Domestic Election Observers has launched a 3-day national training of trainers workshop for its regional coordinators ahead of the 2020 general election. The workshop is supported by the USAID and it goes on and on. I just had to mention that because all of their activities, Star Ghana, Codeo, all of these entities, Imani and the rest, also help as we gear up toward the election. So good news from that angle, Mama.
Yeah, I want to talk about the church building that collapses, a three-story church building belonging to the Church of Promise, Church of Prosperity at Akyem Batabi in the Asene Manso across the districts of the eastern region. It collapsed on Tuesday. We're showing you some pictures now. Adom FM's reporter Kwesi Azor said he saw the mortal remains of the deceased. So one person, as of yesterday at least, had died. Some 62 persons were believed to be conducting a prayer service after hours of fasting when the building, still uncompleted after 28 years of its construction, collapsed. Now, Kwesi indicated that the voices of those trapped inside could be heard, with some screaming for help. A bulldozer was on site to move the wreckage so that lives could be saved. And he said a joint police and military team, as at the time that he reported, were on the scene. Some survivors, we're told, are receiving treatment at the Akyem Oda Government Hospital. We'll get our correspondent Kofi Sian to give us the very latest. How did this all end last night? But this is a very tragic incident. Church building coming down on worshippers on Tuesday.
Very, very, very sad development, Mavi. And two very interesting things. Now, they were actually there, gathered there, fasting and praying for their founder and leader. So it was spiritual exercise. But look, you must always take security. You must always consider that. Now, this building, my concern here, the building had been uncompleted for 28 years. And I feel they just took things for granted. Do you remember TB Joshua's church?
Yes.
It caved in. So yes, you're praying, God is concerned about you, but don't forget you must do what must be done for your own safety.
Let's do myjoyonline.com, and then we will also briefly talk about the situation in Nigerians and share some pictures with you. But on myjoyonline.com, it's #1 for NPP, #2 for NDC on election 2020 ballot paper. It's our biggest story, really, in Ghana today. The balloting yesterday and the placement of the political parties and the only independent candidates that we have going into the election. Now, this is a story that inspires, really. First-class graduate rejected by Ghana School of Law becomes Doctor of Law. You've got to read her story if you haven't been following. I remember speaking to him once here on the AM show. So congratulations to Theophilus. We never organized meeting where NIA official was killed, according to the Peace Council. Now, this was also a story that was making rounds, that somebody had been killed during a Peace Council meeting. Apparently, that is not true. Robbing the poor, how LBCs are illegally renting certification licenses to businessmen. And if you missed the documentary, kindly read the story on myjoyonline.com. My son might have been killed in police custody, mother of prime suspected Professor Bennett's murder. So whilst the family lawyer of this gentleman is asking, is saying that, well, the police would do an autopsy. If they are not satisfied, they would ask for an independent one to be conducted. The mother says they had interacted just a day before. I think he was in court on the Thursday, and he was looking perfect. And for them to suddenly hear that he had died, they suspect he might have been poisoned. So lots of things coming out of this, and we will see what the autopsy report would reveal. But in the meantime, we've been assured that his death will not disturb the ongoing case. #2, let's look at what former President Mahama is saying. Election 2020, #2 means the second coming of Mahama. Oh, well, that's Peter Tokono there. We brought you details in our AM News. Well, plenty more stories related to the elections. You can always go to myjoyonline.com. We've had a viewer send me a message and calling on our president, who is chairman of ECOWAS, to speak on this matter, and making reference to the fact that he's spoken previously on other matters, some things happening even in the US, and they want him to speak on this matter. So we'll be following this closely. But before we take a breather and bring you sports, what is the role of the church when it comes to politics and, most importantly, elections? Is the church well equipped to execute its role and all the nuances that come with it? How influential is the church when it comes to shaping the democratic fortunes of our country? This Sunday, the 25th of October 2020, your radio for discerning listeners, Joy 99.7 FM, as always, will provide the platform and lead the conversation with the various faith bodies and religious leaders on their preparedness for election 2020 in a forum dubbed Election 2020, the role of the church. Speaking will be Archbishop Philip Name, President, Ghana Catholic Bishops Conference, Bishop Samuel Noy Mensah, Executive Member, Ghana Pentecostal and Charismatic Council. Bishop Benny Wood is President, Concerned Clergy Association of Ghana. Reverend Dr. Cyril Fayose, General Secretary, the Christian Council of Ghana. The date is Sunday, 25th of October at 1 p.m. Venue, the Royal House Chapel, Ahemfie. It will be live on Joy FM and the Joy News channel right here. Your host is Pastor Atwaka. For further inquiries, kindly call 0302-216-540. All COVID-19 protocols will be observed. Stay for sports.
But let's come back to Ghana now, where Ghanaian clubs who are supposed to use the Accra Sports Stadium as their home venue for the 2020-2021 Ghana football season would have to pay an incredible amount of 20,000 Ghana cedis per match in order to use the facility. Now, that was from the National Sports Authority, and about 5 Premier League clubs have chosen the country's premier stadium for the upcoming campaign, and matches categorized as A matches would require the home team to pay 20,000.
The NSA, in a statement signed by the Director General, Professor Peter Chumesi, indicated that the new user fees are expected to run during the COVID-19 period and will be subject to review by the management. The Accra Sports Stadium will host more matches in the upcoming season in both the Premier and Division 1 leagues, as 5 teams have confirmed to use the venue. The NSA said home teams will be made to pay 20,000 Ghana cedis per match under Category B matches, whilst Category C matches will attract 15,000. The statement said, and I quote, "Management would like to bring to your notice and attention of fees as well as terms and conditions associated with the usage of the Accra Sports Stadium involving Premier League matches. Matches between Hearts and Kotoko and national teams are grouped under Category A. Matches between Hearts and Kotoko or Kotoko versus other Premier League clubs are grouped under Category B, and matches between other clubs excluding Hearts and Kotoko are grouped under Category C. The Accra Sports Stadium will serve as the home venue to Hearts of Oak, Asante Kotoko, Inter Allies, Great Olympics for the 2020-21 Ghana Premier League. The fees being demanded by the NSA did not go down well with the president, who took to social media to assure clubs his outfit will engage the managers of the stadium. He tweeted, and I quote, "I have read in the public space a statement from the NSA on new stadium user facility charges. I will say this is unfortunate, and our GFA will engage the NSA on these exorbitant and unacceptable fees." Unquote. The 2020-21 Premier League is expected to start on November 13, 2020. Asante Kotoko will begin their campaign against 11 Wonders at the venue.
The Ghana Premier League kicks off on the 13th of November, and do remember to patronize the league once it starts. But that's the note on which we'll be ending the sports segment here. My name is Oreko Ampofo, and have a fantastic day.
Thank you for joining us here on AM Talk. We're talking about the election processes, how far we have come. Yesterday, we witnessed the balloting. Now we know where the parties and the only independent candidate is placed on the ballots. We'll be giving you reminders in the course of this conversation by way of where they are placed. My guest in studio, we're talking about the different angles, the different conversations that have been that has come up because of the balloting yesterday, the different interpretations that have also been put on the placements of the candidates. Mr. Benefsin is poster. He joins us via phone. Also joining us via Zoom is Dr. Stephen MAHAMA BRAIMAH. He's a senior lecturer at the Department of Marketing and Entrepreneurship, the University of Ghana Business School. And in studio is the Member of Parliament for Akyem South, also Deputy Local Government Minister, Mr. Obi Amwa. Let me say good morning to you here.
Thank you so much
for joining. Let me say good morning to Dr. Braimah via Zoom, if you can hear me, sir. Okay. All right. Let me start with you, Mr. Obi Amwa. You're following the process. First of all, your impression about the balloting. What is different about this balloting from the previous ones?
Well, good morning and thank you so much. And then I'll need to thank Multimedia for all that you are doing about the elections. Except that as we go on with this discussion, I will need to bring another angle to see how you can also assist voter education. It's a very critical thing, so we will talk about it. But so far, so good. Even as to who should pick a ballot first, they had to ballot. So we ended up number 4. That we were supposed to be the 4th party, more or less, to pick a ballot, to decide where we will be on the ballot paper. And I checked, in 2016, the same thing happened as to who should pick a ballot, etc., and then order. Which the only challenge I had was where 2 parties were arguing about how many should represent the party at the place. Initially, we knew there were supposed to be 2. So for us, the General Secretary and Director of Elections, others came with more than 2 and a few altercations. But at the end of the day, the ballot was free and fair, and then the whole world was watching, media, civil society, the donor community. So
the NDC Speaker Tokono raised some issues.
Like?
So in terms of writing the numbers or placing the numbers on the sheets before balloting, he raised the issue of the whole process being transparent so that let's witness when you're putting the numbers there.
I don't understand it, in the sense that if you're not careful, you rather encourage people to identify which number is which. Ideally, even before they came in, they should have done that thing. If you look at all the balloting, etc., which we normally witness across the world, even typical one in football, they come with balls. So they just rotate the balls and then you pick one. When you pick, you open it, then you see your number in, or you see the team in, then it's placed. So we can even do better than this, but I don't think.
So you don't think that's something that we should pay attention to?
No, what we should pay attention to is to ensure that nobody gets any advantage as to which number he wants to pick. Apart from that, I don't think we should get so much noise about what to pick. In any case, even though if you pick number 1, it makes it easier to market your candidate. And for your parliamentary candidates, they go along. So every candidate for MPP will be number 1. My place, we are only 2 candidates. So I'll be number 1, and then the NEC will be number 2. Across the country, every MPP candidate will be number 1 as our presidential candidate. So of course, for marketing purposes, it becomes easier for us. But in 2016, our candidate was number 5, but we survived. So we still need to do a lot of work, but it's easier to market your candidate if you think, if I'll take you back, we even used to have ASEO because we were last on the ballot. And then when it came to by-election, we were not ASEO anymore. So we had to change the whole strategy to say that Osnunye, Abanye, now it's become part of us. That it's more important to say that this is the candidate, the symbol is the elephant. So if you come to my place, when I say Osunye, they'll say Nananye. When I say Osunye, they'll say Obinye. So that we don't even haggle over where the person is placed. But if it's very favorable, like number 1, of course, you can add it to your campaign and marketing.
Let me bring in Pollster, Mr. Benevson, who's joining the conversation via phone. Mr. Benevson, a very good morning to you, if you can hear me. Is placement on the ballot significant in terms of who wins the election?
Good morning to our viewers. I think that the placement will determine how easy it will be to market your candidate. 2, it will make you either lose votes through what I call the unofficial third presidential candidate party called rejected ballots. Because most presidential candidates, the number of rejected ballots always persisted before the other smaller presidential candidates. So the placement has an impact. It makes it easier, and you avoid votes that would have gone to you going to rejected ballots.
You've monitored elections closely. Some are already concerned about the possibility of spoiled ballots because the two candidates people are most likely to vote for are close to each other.
I don't think so. I think that 1 and 2 makes it easier for them in terms of campaigning their presidential and parliamentary candidate, because across board it will be 1 and 2. If one of them, the big two parties, had gone to, let's say, 5 or 6, they would have had problem campaigning for their presidential candidate. Then the parliamentary candidate would have had a problem of saying that vote for number 1, then vote for me at number 5. So fortunately, these two parties have escaped that imbalance and difficulty in marketing their campaigns. But I think that the one makes it easier in terms of majority of Ghanaians understand it makes it very easy. But they are fortunate they are close to each other, losing time and resources.
Will this also allow for the other people in between to be easily identified?
No, there's nobody between the two. But
yes, the rest of the candidates after 2.
Yes, it will. It will already be in the last 2 elections, even though you invited me to speak, but as a diplomat, so I'll be a bit blunt. In the last 2 elections, unfortunately, apart from these 2 candidates, the fortunes of their votes have been dwindling. Like in 2000, the other candidates, apart from the 2, got 6.2%. In 2012, there were 8. Apart from the 2 NDC MPP, the 6 candidates got 1.5% of total votes. In 2016, there were 7. The 2 top NDC MPP, apart from the 2, the remaining 5 got 1.75%. So already, apart from 1, 2, they are going to have problems even with their meager support base. They're going to have problems identifying. Somebody will say, I'm 7. Maybe one of the few constituencies that they will have parliamentary candidates who will be their main campaign for the presidential candidate. They would have problems. Well, not everybody fulfilled all the 200 that the 2 big parties filled. So that is going to even make it worse. That's why today I've suggested that I'll be surprised if the total votes of all the 10 others, apart from NDC MPP, exceeds 4% on December 7th.
Yes, indeed. It's actually the headline, one of the major headlines on the front page of the Daily Dispatch. The total votes of the 10 other presidential candidates would not exceed 4%. That's an emphatic statement right there, Mr. Benefson.
Yes, there are lots. Amavi, you are talking about, apart from, if you don't like MPP and NDC, going through 10 candidates. And like I said, your parliamentary, the 10 will have they will have a sprinkling of parliamentary candidates. So if others are in between, maybe your candidate is number 4 and you are number 6, you're going to have a task. Oh, vote for my presidential candidate. He's at 3 or she's at 3 and vote for me, I'm at 6. So we are going to have, this time, the rejected ballots, unofficial rejected ballots party is going to be very big, unfortunately.
All right. Mr. Benefson, stay with us. Let me bring Dr. Stephen MAHAMA BRAIMAH into the conversation. Dr. BRAIMAH, a very good morning to you. Thanks for joining us. Hello, Dr. Braimah.
Thank you for having me. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you now. What do you make of the various interpretations being put on the numbers already? We've heard there's the religious, the more... yesterday I heard about the 9 representing childbirth. That's even been put on a number already. But what do you make of the various things that have come up already?
Thank you. It's interesting listening and reading from various social commentators about the importance of the various numbers. The numbers in themselves do not really portend anything. The important thing about the numbers is what the various parties would use those numbers to do, to spin off, to market their candidates. That's what will be important as far as the numbers are concerned. I hear the Honorable Minister talking about the fact that because they are number 1, it's easier for them to be able to market themselves. So it is going to be depending on the various parties and what they use the numbers in order to be able to galvanize their support base. So I can see, for example, the MPP talking about we are number 1, and so we are the winners, we are top there. I can see NDC talking about we are number 2, and that's our second time of coming, so it's surety for us. So it is the spin that the parties put on the numbers that will have an impact on their base. But the numbers themselves are just numbers. That's what I believe.
Is that what the trend has been previously? Because there have been a few comparisons. There's been also the bit about even the National Science and Maths quiz being brought into this conversation. Some of the parties believe this has happened before. So the fact that I'm number 1 or I am number 2 means it's a done deal.
Yes, I read that. And you see, what happens is that in trying to market your candidate, you look for events and happenings and history that seems to portend positively for you and then bring that up. So if you look at the NDC case, what happened in 2008, Presec winning the national mass quiz, MPP picking number 1 and then going to lose the election, it seems the history is repeating itself. And so it means that for NDC, they will need to be able to get this information out there. Look, what happened in 2008 is happening again. And so it means that we are out there to be able to win the election. Now, this may have the psychological impact of galvanizing their supporters, and then probably those few sidelines who are yet not decided might look and say, oh yes, maybe it's a done deal, so let's go along with that. So this history repeating itself would only have an impact if the party is able to communicate that effectively and to get to their support base, and those other ones that have not yet made up their minds as to vote for A or B.
Honorable Obi Amwa in the studio, any thoughts in terms of what they shared with the strategies? It looks like you're good with the number 1.
Well, certainly, I think for any entity, when you ballot and you get number 1, you're happy with it. Number 1 is not an unlucky number in any way. There are some numbers which some may say are unlucky numbers, but not number 1.
But you would have loved number 4.
It would have sent the same message, 4 more to do more. In any case, we are not the only people looking for 4 more. Others are looking for 4 more, but we've managed to take over that slogan. So if we add the number 1 to the 4 more, we are good. 1 more term for Daniel Akufo-Addo is number 1 touch. You can do all the permutations and we are cool with the number 1. Our Uncle Ben was talking about rejected ballots, etc. Of course, if you look at the results, usually rejected ballots are more than what the individual candidates get apart from MPP and NDC. If you look at 2016, the results are here. I just want you to go through it. You see the rejected, the 1.54, which is more than the 0. Those percentages that the other candidates had. So,
well, it's just reiterating what he said in terms of the total rejected 1.54, and the number is 167,349.
Yes.
The total valid votes, which was over 10,000.
Yes.
Okay. So per what we've heard,
10 million.
10 million per what we've heard, this will be the rejected ballots will even be a lot more because of the placements.
Well, we used to have a challenge with the ballot paper, but now there's a very thick line between the candidates. And for the EC, if for any reason the greater part of the thumb is in a particular box, it's counted as being for that particular candidate. So what we need to do is the more education. And some even advocate that instead of looking at the ballot in a straight way to tampering, turn the ballot so that you tamper against your candidate so that none of the ink will go into the next box for anybody to say that that ballot should be rejected. So it's all about education and then...
Yeah, but has that been decided in terms of how the ballot paper itself would look like?
The ballot paper always has those thick lines between boxes. So for any reason, if anybody should tamper it and then the ink should go to the next box, because there are thick lines, unless the person doesn't know how to vote, which would then bring the rejected ballot because the person would then have voted for two candidates and to be rejected. But if the greater part of the thumb is in a particular box to be counted, and of course, the challenge is that for most people, they vote MPP, NDC. So if we were separated, it would have been easier than if we were together. But it's the same thing, because if you don't tamper well, if you don't vote well, no matter where the candidate is, it will be rejected. So the most critical thing is education as to how to even vote. Well, we take some of these things for granted, but people even don't know how to vote. That's how come we have rejected ballots, even though there are other reasons why a ballot may be rejected. For instance, if you write on the ballot paper, it will be rejected.
Let me just bring in Mr. Benefson on this particular issue of rejected ballots. What do we know has accounted for this in the past? Is it because people are simply confused, they don't know how to vote, or they really don't want to vote, so they just want to spoil the ballots?
I don't think that anybody would get about to spoil the ballot. You know, apart from the two big parties, the smaller parties, their main agents of campaign are their parliamentary candidates. And it makes it a bit confusing if not all the smaller parties filled in all the 200. So if your presidential candidate is in 4, that is in terms of the presidential ballot, and you, the parliamentary candidate, because the people have not filed well, one number 3, you will tell your supporters, if you go, vote 3 for me and vote for the presidential candidate. If they vote 3, then you go and vote. You say the person is different, so you've already voted for somebody else. Then you vote for the presidential candidate of the smaller party. That ballot is gone. So that is mainly the thing. And like Obi said, it's because the two parties are together. They will be together for all the 275 in presidential party. So they will not suffer so much rejected ballots in terms of confusion between the parliamentary and presidential placing. It is already smaller parties starved of votes who may suffer most. Because 12, I don't think that we've ever had 12. The biggest number, I think, has been 8 or has been 10. But 12 is going to be. Maybe Walker, the independent candidate down there, I don't think he will have any parliamentary candidates. So he may have a good campaign strategy of Aseho. And he may get a few votes, especially the one above him. So that is what I see. I mean, people are just a bit reckless. And I think that, like Obi's suggestion, if people will be asked to turn the ballot 5 years so that your thumb is more secured, it will reduce the rejected ballots. But the rejected ballots, even to the political party, MAVIS, it always plays dead.
But Dr. Braimah, some people would also vote, even though they know how to vote, they would do it so that it will be rejected as a form of protest.
Mama, is it me?
No, I was directing that at Dr. Braimah.
Okay.
Okay, so we all often hear there's people saying that they go in to have protest vote, and so they vote in such a way that they waste their votes. And without any empirical evidence, I could summarize that that would be a very small number. I think the bigger number of rejected votes would be people who have really either they're in a hurry or they're not really used to voting. And so at the end of the day, what they wanted to say has not actually been said. And that is worrying because this is a democratic practice. You expect to factor in everybody who is qualified to vote and ready to vote. You want to factor in their opinion as to who should be the next leader. And so when you walk in there and you vote and your vote is not counted because it's a spoiled ballot or rejected ballot, it's worrying. And I think that with this one, the Electoral Commission and the National Commission for Civil Education has a lot to do so that we can actually educate the voters very well, so that when they get in there, we have very few spoiled ballots. Because sometimes when I look at the percentage of the spoiled ballot that comes, the NFC says it's normally the third political party. Yes. So it tells you that they can make or unmake a particular candidate or candidates. And so I think it behoves on all the institutions and also particularly the political parties that are participating in this election process to educate the voters so well that when they get in there, they are able to take their time and they're able to place their thumbprint properly and squarely on the people they're voting for. And I think that sometimes the problem also comes from how they fold it. Even though every election cycle, people are taught how to fold. I think education is not getting down too well. So if you don't fold it properly, you realize that your thumbprint will then go down and then go and affect somebody else. So I think that even folding the ballot box, the ballot paper too, is critical. And so we need a lot of education in this one so we can factor everybody's opinion into the democratic process.
Okay, so with that said, let's talk about timing. And I raised the issue of, because the balloting has been done very quickly, right after the confirmation of the candidates, Honorable Obiamwa, is that time for grievances to be addressed? Because I remember when Dr. Papa Kwesi Ndum went to court, there was an injunction on the balloting, which meant that there was a bit of time, but now it's been closed.
No, not at all. When Papa Kwesi Ndum went to court, and the court ordered that the EC should allow candidates to make corrections on the mistakes, if it's not forgery or dubious document, but for just mistakes, the EC should allow them to correct them. We ended up in November. So if anybody wants to go to court now, with the Supreme Court decisions and the precedent, you don't go and waste everybody's time in the High Court. The EC will come in and say that let the Supreme Court take up this matter. The Supreme Court will then give orders that do it this way, mindful of the fact that we have to print the ballot papers and then vote on 7 December. So there's still time. Anybody who thinks that he's been disqualified can still go to court. But as you said, because now we've balloted, it makes it a bit more complicated. But they still have to go to court. But I wanted to come back to a few things that Ben and our friend, the lecturer, said. We should distinguish between spoiled ballots and rejected ballots. Spoiled ballot is when you're given the ballot and then for any reason it's spoiled. You go back, they'll give you another ballot to go and vote. Maybe ink would have spilled on it. Maybe by the time we're holding it, you
so this is before you even make the attempt to vote.
And you are entitled to go for another one. But for rejected, you've voted. After voting, there's that issue that it cannot be counted because you've either voted for 2 people or for whatever reason, if there's a mark on it or you didn't vote at all those things will count. Then we should also take note of the fact that somebody may have a presidential candidate. I will not have a parliamentary candidate. So if you come to my constituency, if you are PPP, your presidential candidate is number 10, but you don't have a parliamentary candidate. So you may say that, okay, I vote number 10, but I'll go and vote for number 1, which will be me. And that will not be a rejected ballot. And that will not confuse anybody. There are situations to where, assuming PPP had filed in my constituency, PPP would have been number 3. In which case, they have 10 for presidential candidate and 3 for parliamentary. That's where the campaigning becomes a bit more difficult. That vote for 10 and vote for 3. So but at the end of the day, voting for different persons at the presidential and parliamentary will not make it rejected. Except that if that's not a wish, that means the person has been confused by the positioning and everything. That's what I wanted to just bring it.
Great. And Mr. Benefson, I want to ask about the issues that Peter Otokno raised at the beginning of the balloting, and if you think you know, there's something relevant in there that we should pay attention to in terms of helping the whole exercise being a lot more transparent?
Thank you, Mama. I watched the processes and I didn't really get a grasp of what Otokuno meant, because the balls were there. You go in and you pick to get the order of picking. So coming there to write and fold and put it in, you are going to get a situation where you are going to waste a lot of time on it. So I didn't actually get the drift of what he was saying, to be honest with you. I felt that there have been instances that people may disagree, but I didn't actually get the drift. Perhaps you felt that the EC should have stuck to the same, perhaps, way that they do it. But this is not football that you can have hot or cold balls to pick. You know, during the FIFA scandal, they said to avoid big clubs, some of the balls were heated, so you don't take it. So perhaps I felt that perhaps it was part of their displeasure with the EC as a whole, in terms that you can see that perhaps every step the EC has taken, the NDC have had issues. So, well, perhaps this may have been, but if honestly, I tell you that I had a grasp of what you were saying, I did not. I felt that perhaps it was a storm in a teacup.
Can I get your thoughts on this? Maybe there was something that you saw, Dr. Braimah, that you think is relevant enough for us to pay attention to. He wanted the writing of the numbers to be policed, if you like. There should be agents, and he was citing the fact that they also carry out exercises like that, and they do it.
I think that if you watch the process, you will realize that at the end of the day, because there were two processes, one to ballot for who to come when to ballot for the position on the presidential ticket, it actually meant that because the processes were two, it would be difficult for anybody to actually manipulate it. And at the end of the day, the two biggest parties seem to be very happy with where they have. NPP is happy they are in number one. They're talking about one more term for Nana. NDC is happy they're in number two. They are talking of second coming of John Mahama. So it looks like at the end of the day, the parties are actually happy with what they got. So I didn't really observe any particular infringement or any particular challenge with the process that is worth probably talking about. But because he was there, maybe there was something else he saw that we did not see. But standing outside and watching, I thought that at the end of the day, it worked out fine for all the parties involved.
Let me get your thoughts, and I'll start with Mr. Benefsing, also about the timing of the processes. You know, with the new register, one of the concerns, especially with COVID, was the timing. Now we're in October, and we've even done the balloting. Where does this leave us? Does this give us more time? It looks like it gives us a lot more time for the candidates to even do a good job with selling themselves.
EC has done very well within the time frame getting a new register. I think that if we had used the old register, we would have had perhaps excess of 2 million more people. I think that they've gotten their act together. They've done very, very well. And as you can see, the balloting has been done. There are dates, one, to take care of any potential legal redress that the Supreme Court may order, if any. And yes, to give the candidates more time. So I think that the EC has done very well within the circumstances. There may be a few pitfalls, but to now, towards between now and the election, I think that I'll give them an A for the processes and the time frame. I mean, getting the new register, MAHAMA, was Herculean, but they've done well.
That's a very generous A you give them.
Oh, I've been involved in elections at least closely from the Fourth Republic. If you look at the population census, many of the people are below 50 years. I don't remember anything. In 1992, the ballot box was not transparent. And where I voted, I was the 8th person. When I was going to vote, the ballot box was full. We had, in 1992, we had parliamentary fairs, then we had presidential fairs, then parliamentary, then people boycotted. From 96, we moved on to voting for the two on the same day. Ballot boxes became transparent. A lot has gone, and I know the processes and the problems. And I've been generous because, to be honest, I was a bit apathetic. I was a bit scared if they would finish all the processes ahead of time to give room for any legal disruptions. That is why I've been very generous that they've really done well with the timing, and there's enough time for campaigning and enough time to remedy any situation that any legal challenge may order at the Supreme Court.
Let me come to you, Mr. more in terms of the calendar where we are. You've talked about, and I will spend a bit of time with the issue that you're raising with education. Yes. What else do we have? Where do we move from where we are after balloting? What next?
Well, if you look at the CI 127, the critical thing is the filing of nomination. When you conclude that process, for us as political parties, we need to train our agents, because there's a time within which you have to submit a list of agents for EC to give them accreditation. And these are the persons who represent the party at the polling station level. At the EC level, they have in place the returning officers, but they have to recruit presiding officers. Presiding officers are those who will be in charge of the process at the polling station. They will be in charge of everything. The returning officer is the one at the center. He's in charge of the whole constituency, but he presides at the collation center. For presidential, of course, is the EC boss, the Electoral Commission chair. So for the EC, they are following the calendar. The most critical thing, even after the balloting, barring any legal issues, is to get the ballot papers printed. You have to print the ballot papers, carry them, transport them to the places, get their machines ready for verification, etc. But the critical thing is the education. They have a whole, if you pick 2016, they had a guide to voters, how the voters should know the process, conduct, the way you vote.
Do you know whether or not we'll have something like this year?
It should be an obligation. They are obliged to produce these things. We even want to like this. And these are critical things that I believe that the media should also look at, so that in your discussions, we also find time to educate the average voter. There are a lot of things that you expect the average voter to know, but he might not know. So for instance, if anybody should advise you that I want to know whether you vote for me because I don't trust you. So when they give the ballot paper, write your name there. It's rather making sure that your vote will be negated. So never put any mark on the ballot paper. And you train agents, fine, but you should be able to also tell the electorate, the average voter, that these are things that you can do, these are things that you can't do, these are things that can nullify your vote, these are things that can even put you in trouble as far as the laws are concerned. And the time may be short, but it's very critical that we look at those things. So for the EC, they are on course, in spite of all the problems that they've had, court cases, COVID, the demonstrations, late registration, but they've come very far. But there's still a lot of work for them to do, because for presiding, you have to even publish those you are appointing, for the parties to have enough notice, and for parties to object to any appointment you've made, you have to sit on the objection, adjudicate, and then come out to confirm whether this person is very well known in a particular constituency as a party activist, so he can be your official. And for them, I will also advise that they need to train their officers very well. They shouldn't take it for granted, because for registration, you have a period. For elections, it's only a one-day matter. If your officials mess up, they mess you up. because then the legal issues will come in, court cases, etc. And sometimes they admit that they were at fault. The famous case, I also West Wagon, just transposition. They gave the results of Azikamo to Rebecca Adote. And when they went to court, they admitted. But it took 4 years for the court to determine it. So most critical things, the recruitment of the officers for the job, training of them, and then making sure that on election day, they don't compromise. They perform very well and then don't get compromised in any way, which would then put the EC in trouble. Because most of the time, the people they even recruit are not permanent staff. You understand? They are not permanent. As for permanent staff, you can be sanctioned because you are permanent and you may lose your job, etc. But these people are recruited for that exercise, and then you pay them for being part of it. If they mess you up, they mess the whole EC up, but they are gone. Even though when it comes to the legal side, they can't be prosecuted. So there's still work for EC to do, but we all need to help them to be able to do it so that we have very credible elections, a transparent one as such.
Mr. Benefson, it looks like we have a lot of work, and when I say we, the media, but one would also think that because we've carried out these exercises for quite some time now, we don't have to do as intensive a job. Everybody should know the basic things by now. You should know how to vote.
Well, for example, you got the EC data on new voters register. There are 1.3 million voters, 18, 19-year-olds who've now voted. So there's a huge number of voters out there who can make a difference, who need to be taught. And I have some free advice for the political parties. You know, EC on election years engages private people, about 100,000 people, and the presiding and returning officers, the names are published for the political parties to look through that, oh, Mr. A in this constituency is a known figure. My advice to the political parties is to circulate all the names among all their people, because I've realized over years that if somebody is well known in Ablekuma Central constituency, for example, who will apply to be a presiding or a returning officer in Orodo. Because when the list comes, the political parties will give the names of those who've been at Ablekuma Central to their officials or party agents in Ablekuma Central to check whether the name there is somebody who is known. I think that in the region, they should circulate all the names to all the executives, the various constituencies, to be able to point that look, I know of this person, even though I know this person at my center, to avoid what it is. You know, the human head is round. You cannot know what's inside the head. These are some of the things that will help improve efficiency. That when you object, then you have basis for objecting to make the processes on December 7th free and fair.
Dr. Braimah, I'm passionate about the women who have made it onto the ballot this year. There are 3 women. There's number 5, number 10, and number 11. Are these favorable numbers? Would it be easier? You know, can they do good marketing with where they are placed?
Yes, they can. You need to have well-seasoned and experienced political marketers to actually help you use the numbers that you are falling into to market yourself. Yes, they can, and especially because they are ladies. And you know, over the years, we have been crying that we need to have a lot more female participation at the top level of our political exercises. And so this time, I think this is the time we have about 3 women at the top. And so just the fact that there are women there, that already gives them a leverage that they can use. That is one. Number 2, the numbers that that are attached to that position that they have picked, they can equally use that as well. The idea always is that you want to get the people who want to support you to know exactly where your number is placed. Because see, you got into the ballot booth and you are looking at 12 names and you have to look through. Apart from the bigger ones that are well known and that are at this time all at the top, it means that you need to be looking through to identify whether or not you can identify your person. Sometimes people are not even able to identify the photos, and if you can also read, which is the case with some of our voters, then how do you actually read who the name? So the issue is that the symbol must be well known, the number must also be well known. In fact, and your photographs must also be well known. And if you do this, it could actually bring the people that hope to vote for you. The challenge they actually have is that over the years, you see that people tend to vote mostly in MPP NDC. So what it means is that it's a small number of voters who tend to vote for the other parties. And this year, the other parties are a lot. So what it means that they may tend to share a lot more of the other votes, and so they may not really get much. But they can't sit on their horse. They will need to make a very serious attempt to make their presence felt. And so they can't do that.
Mr. Benefson, if you look at the 2016 election, even though generally in Ghana there are more women, more men took part in that exercise. The fact that we have 3 women on the ballots, do you think that would account for more women showing up to vote, even if not necessarily voting for them?
Mami, can I be blunt?
Yes, sir, as always.
In 2016, we had the first ever woman presidential candidate, Anna Konedo, and she did not get 17,000 votes. In percentage terms, he got 0.16%. It's unfortunate that I think that a presidential candidate will need to be propelled by a strong party. The NDP is rather young, and I don't think that women will go and vote for a woman candidate necessarily. It's going to be very difficult. In 20 years of polling, the only person before elections that we had done some work who would have done well as an independent candidate was the late Kofi Annan when he was exited. But since then, the trend has been the same. And unfortunately, we have 3 women. Perhaps the battle for the one of the 3 would be between the PPP and NDP. We have the Dominico for PPP and another project for NDP. In 2016, Dr. Indom did well of the smaller parties. He got 0.99%. So if that goodwill is still going to be there, that is going to be between the 2. But unfortunately, we've not gotten to the stage where a woman will vote for a woman because the person is a woman. I don't think we've gotten to that stage yet.
Interesting. Would you want to add your voice to that? Would we see the fact that we have more women showing up to vote?
In our campaigns, at least what we've seen so far, it appears more women turn out to come and listen to us. They dominate. I mean, for whatever reason, they seem to show interest in what we are doing, and of course, they come with their own.
They make the campaigns also very colorful.
Very colorful. They like dancing a lot. They sing along, and of course, they come because they have issues. We want loans. Environment is this. They come because they have issues. What then is critical is for the parties to be able to get them to go and vote. If you do house to house and you go and meet the ladies, they tell you their problems, you become familiar with them. On election day, you should be able to convince them that go and queue and vote. That's how you'll be able to get your problems solved. So if you look at the statistics, as you said, if it's below 50%, even though there are more than men, below 50% who went to vote, then they should be encouraged to go and vote. Irrespective of the fact that the person will still want to go to the market to go and sell her wares. And if it's going to waste her time, she may say that today's market day I need to go, I may not, or I'll go and come back, never turns up. So we need to encourage women to vote and vote massively so that at least the impact will be felt. And for us, when you talked about the balloting, the other aspect is that once we know where we are now, we are going to do dummy ballots. We are going to print dummy ballots, just put our candidate and a symbol and then how to vote. Going around
in educating the people.
Educating them and then making them aware that when it comes to the time, this is how we will expect you to vote. So what we do is to put the candidate's picture, their symbol, and the box, and the rest we leave it blank. We do something dark to show that we are not interested in all those other candidates. So this is how the ballot will be. So when you go, this is how we expect you to vote. It's all part of education, it's all part of the campaigning. Yes.
Just your last thoughts on this, Dr. Braimah. How else do you think that the education should be done this year?
Well, I think the parties should get involved and get involved big time. They don't only need to train their polling agents, they actually need to communicate right to the grassroots and let the people know how voting is going to be done. Like Obi is saying, they are going to embark on a strategy to indicate their people as to how to vote. And that is also a strategy of campaigning as well as not just education. I think the other parties should also take a cue from that and then decide how they're going to approach their grassroots voters and let them understand how to vote. Because for me, the how to vote is very critical because the guy goes there, he queues for 2 hours, 3 hours, he goes there and then he has no vote. His ballot is rejected. He doesn't even know. He thinks he has taken part in decision making, but he hasn't actually taken part in any decision making. And so the parties should get down to the rules and don't take anything for granted. Get the people to understand how to vote, and not just how to vote, but also turn out to vote. Because when the turnout is high, then we are sure that whoever gets the mandate actually has the mandate of the people.
Dr. Braimah, thank you very much for your time. Mr. Benefsing, I want to ask you this. Before the registration exercise, we had lots of people say, oh, I'm not interested because of COVID, I'm not going to show up to register. But in the end, we know quite a good number showed up to register. Same with the exercise itself in terms of voting. Has there been, yesterday, listening and watching, there seemed to be a lot of attention paid to the balloting. Do you feel that the buzz is on, so that on December 7, those who even said, oh, they're not interested in voting will show up to vote?
Yes. I mean, the trend since 1992, MAVIS had been that anytime there's a change in government, the turnout is low, and the election thereafter has a very high turnout. I think that the decision of the AC, normally the polling stations, they peg it that in excess of 1,000, they create a new polling station. This time, they brought it down to 700. So I'm sure people who are afraid of COVID, the 700 should be able to make them. I mean, when they go and there are huge crowds, they may decide to turn away. But the 700 per polling station, if we take average of even 70% turnout, that should ease people's fears about COVID. And I don't think that we should have a process. The EC must come clear because we need to be careful that an overzealous election official might insist that if you don't have a mask, you will not allow you to vote. So that is a crucial area. All stakeholders must agree that if we are going to vote, if you don't have a mask, will you be allowed to vote? We need to clarify this to avoid election day wahala problems. Somebody saying that somebody went to vote. So that is an issue that needs to be cleared with all stakeholders, Mamawi.
Great. Well, thank you very much, Mr. Benefsing, for your thoughts and for spending time with us here on the AM show. Really grateful.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Yeah. Mr. Obiamwa, just the last leg of this, and let's build up from where Mr. Benefsing left off in terms of the COVID protocols. Yes. You go to IPAC meetings.
Yes.
Is this scheduled for, do we know what's going to happen on the day itself in terms of...
Well, the first thing we need to address our minds to is the law itself. Are we supposed to wear masks
but are we
in
even
public?
using the law?
No,
the last time somebody was arrested?
Are we supposed to wear masks in public places? If the law is still there, that means that you're supposed to comply with the law. For us as a political party, we want to make sure that our followers will go and vote for us. So we are even making room for the protocols. Nobody should give an excuse that I'm not going to the place because I don't have a mask. We will produce a mask for you. And
so your agents would have masks at the centers to give to those who would come.
Yes, or even those coming from home. If we get prompters, people to go and convince them, yes, it's time for voting, go and vote. On the way, we say that you need a mask. If you don't have this, a mask for you. So we are investing in those things. It didn't happen in 2016, but these are the times. And we expect the EC2 to talk about the social distancing and all those things. We all have to be part of it. But the most important thing is to observe the protocols and also assure people that you can go and vote and you don't have any problem. If they think that going to vote will get them infected or anything, then it means we have a problem. And we want to take part in solving that problem by investing in these sanitizers and face masks and anything that would make the average voter comfortable to go and vote for the results to be declared. So we have IPAC and we have DIPAC. The IPAC, that means at the district level. The parties also meet at the district level. They meet at the national level. And we need to agree some of these things. Maybe the most extreme would be where you'll be driven away that without a mask you can't vote. That would be extreme. And we need to address those
Would
things.
it be extreme?
It would, because the person will say that you've denied him the right to determine who should lead us, even though it's an offense not to wear a mask in public and even at such gatherings. So that's why I'm saying that trying to mitigate it would mean that we should have a way of providing those things for them. If a voter comes and doesn't have, you should give him a mask before he goes to vote.
But at least for the political parties, the terms have not been agreed.
No,
we know the law. You've talked about what
we
the law
haven't
says,
met at IPAC for the AC to insist on this, for the AC to remind us that it's part of the law. We haven't met at that stage. And for the AC to even say that we will take part of the investment, you have masks ready at the polling center. If anybody appears without mask, we will let the person wear a mask before he goes to vote. EC can take that upon itself, like what they did for registration. And then the parties too have to invest in that so that we don't have issues with COVID even at this time. Because there's a second wave around the world and we seem to have escaped. And it's not by magic, because we did a lot of work to get to this point. And we don't need to do anything that will make us suffer for it. Can imagine that if we had lost about 20,000 people or 50,000 people going into elections, there will be fear and panic. But the number, even though very unfortunate, is quite low, and people are a bit confident to go to places, except that me at my community gatherings, when I get there, first thing I look at is, are they wearing face masks? So I ask my handlers, why are they not wearing face masks? If there's some in the car, give to everybody. But I don't want to be pictured addressing people who are not observing the protocols. It defeats the purpose. So I always carry these things along and say that distribute to them. So we are investing so much in face masks, but it's the price we have to pay at this time for the campaign.
Well, thank you very much this morning for the thoughts that you also share with us. And that's where we end AM Talk for today. Stay with us. We've got other conversations. But what is the role of the church when it comes to politics and, most importantly, elections? Is the church well equipped to execute its role and all the nuances that come with it? How influential is the church when it comes to shaping the democratic fortunes of our country? This Sunday, the 25th of October, your radio for discerning listeners, Joy 99.7 FM, as always, will provide a platform and lead the conversation with the various faith bodies and religious leaders on their preparedness for election 2020. In a forum dubbed Election 2020, the Role of the Church. Speaking will be Archbishop Philip Name, President Ghana Catholic Bishops Conference, also Bishop Samuel Noy Mensah, Executive Member, Ghana Pentecostal and Charismatic Council, Bishop Benny Wood, President, Concerned Clergy Association of Ghana, Reverend Dr. Cyril Fayose, General Secretary, the Christian Council of Ghana. It's Sunday, the 25th of October, 1 p.m. at the Royal House Chapel, Ahimfie. It will be live on Joy FM, also here on the Joy News channel. Host is Pastor Ato Aqua. For inquiries, you can kindly call 0302 216 540, 0302 216 540. And remember that all the COVID-19 protocols will be observed. Now, let's bring you the story. Lives of aircraft passengers are in danger. Signals from control towers at the Kotoka International Airport are being blocked by illegal buildings put up on aviation lands by private and real estate developers at East Legon, Ashaliboche and La Wireless. That is according to the spokesperson of the Coalition of Ghana Civil Aviation Association Workers at East Legon. Some of the developers have cleared the green belt, which is supposed to absorb the carbon monoxide emitted from vehicles on the Accra-Tema motorway. The green belt, which was also to make it possible for an extension of the motorway, can now best be described as a concrete jungle. Maxwell Agbaba has more in this report.
Voice of Dr. Andrew Anani Akutu showing me a picture with his wife during a visit to the South Pole. He reminisces about the good times there. In the 1970s, it was the lush green and the serene environment that attracted him to East Legon. But that is no more. The greenery has now given way to concrete. The green belt, which was supposed to serve as a buffer between the motorway and East Legon, has been cleared by property developers, with some of them dangerously constructing high-rise buildings under flight approach paths. The former director of the UNFPA and the former chairman of the National Population Council is just one out of the many Ghanaians and residents of East Legon terrified about the situation. He wants persons who have put their personal interests above the state's interest punished.
All the trees have been cut down, and we see high-rise buildings going up, and it only goes to confirm, I fear, what a friend of mine used to say, that in Ghana, monkeys play by sizes. If you are big enough, you'll get away with it. It is encouraging to hear and to have noticed that the minister has caused to be demolished one of those buildings. But alas, it is not the only building there. The minister, maybe he has started, and he must complete the job and demolish everything in that area there, because it is the belief of those of us who live there that these buildings have been put up in contravention, total disregard of a court order and a court judgment. Are some people in our country so powerful because of their personal, private, financial concerns that they can ignore the court's decisions? Decisions which were taken to protect the environment, to protect the people who live in this area. I believe not. And but I must submit that clearly these buildings could not have been put up without the knowledge of the appropriate authorities in the country.
The laws of this country, it cannot happen.
Voice of Roads and Highways Minister Kwesi Amwaku Atta when he visited the Green Belt sometime last week. The Green Belt was also to make it possible for the extension of the Accra-Tema motorway. But it has been cleared by private and real estate developers as they continue to build on the land. The Roads and Highways Minister ordered the demolition of the structures on the land, vowing to pull down more.
And the right thing will be done no matter who is involved. This structure, I don't care who is the owner. You could be anybody. This structure will go down. I have ordered the destruction of that structure. And no matter who the owners are, it will not be tolerated. We will not stop such an important overpass over the motorway that will serve the people of this country because of individuals' selfish interests. Look, when you get here, we shall pull this structure down. Just as I have directed that structure to be pulled down, and they are pulling it down. They should stop work. If they don't, and monitor them, they should stop work. Otherwise, within 2 weeks, we are coming here with the full force of national security, and we will pull all these houses down. because the motorway extension is coming to this side, and the contractor has been appointed. We are turning the motorway into a 6-lane highway, and individuals just encroach on the road reservation, and do whatever they like under the guise of permit and hot permit, and write to them to stop work. If they don't, just as I have ordered the demolition of about 4 or 5 houses today, if they don't stop within 2 weeks, I will come here with more excavators and the full force of national security.
Drive on the streets very close to East Legon Tunnel, where the green belt is located, reveals how private developers have taken over the land with their makeshift and permanent structures. All the trees have been completely destroyed. One of the residents alerted me to how an aircraft which was about to land at the Kotoka International Airport was closer to one of the high-rise buildings under construction.
People don't realize it.
I am now in an office at the airport city to meet Dr. Isaka Yakubu Akparibo. He has many years of experience in the aviation industry. He's alarmed by the danger and equally concerned about high-rise buildings and flight approach paths at East Legon.
You know, in aviation, most accident happens when aircrafts are landing or taking off. Okay. If you are on the approach path and something happens, the number of lives that is going to be lost is going to be high. You are going to lose people in the aircraft and then people on the ground. Yeah. You know, that's why in countries that have like coastlines, if you observe, most of the airports are nearer the coastline, so that you take off and then you go through on this through the sea side, and then if there's anything, you can the aircraft drops, and then the casualties won't be much because it will only be the people on the aircraft but not on the ground. There are so many developments along the approach path to our airports, and that definitely poses some safety issues in regards to aviation operations. You know, any structure that is like above 500 feet closer to the airport will pose a danger to aircraft. You know, so you look at the approach path of our airport is northeast, which is like from East Legon there. Yeah, so that one, like high-rise structures are definitely going to interfere with aircraft landing at our airports. We have something we call visual flight rules and then instrument flight rules. So if you are like approaching the airport, you need to use your visual cues as a pilot to identify where the airport is, where the runway is and all that, in order for you to land safely. Sometimes you have like bad weather situations, or maybe the autopilot not working and all that, and as a pilot you then have to use your visual flight rules. So if you have high-rise structures that are obstructing like your view, then that is going to make it difficult for the pilot to land. In aviation, what we don't want is distraction. You know, the least distraction of the pilot normally will lead to like accidents.
Some meters away from the East Legon Green Belt is the very high-frequency omnidirectional range, VOR. The VOR is a ground-based navigational aid which enables an aircraft with receiving units to determine its position and stay on course by receiving radio signals. Aviation experts discourage close settlements around VORs, but that has become inevitable at East Legon, where there's a VOR equipment. Spokesperson for the Coalition of Ghana Civil Aviation Authority Workers, William Amwaku, is also concerned about the developments at East Legon.
When you install this equipment, even the first 300 meters radius, you don't have to leave anything there. If even I'm the one going to do repairs on this facility, I have to park my car beyond the 300 meter radius. The next 600 to even 2 kilometers, you cannot do certain things there. Metallic or certain things that can radiate radiomagnetic waves and the rest. So there are strict requirements. So when you have high-rise buildings, which block some of these signals. It affects the reception and everything, and for that matter, that's why a lot of people complain, and the airlines complain as well.
It is not just the aviation lands at East Legon which are affected by the encroachment. The Coalition of Ghana Civil Aviation Authority workers recently withdrew essential services which affected operations of domestic airlines. The workers protested the illegal sale and encroachment of aviation lands at La Wireless, close to the AU village, and La Nkwantanan at Ashalebutwe. A visit to the two lands revealed how some persons were constructing structures very close to GCAA equipment. Spokesperson of the Coalition of GCAA Workers, William Amwakun, again.
Encroaching, and our investigations have revealed that it is the Lands Commission that has virtually sold the land to some private individuals as well as maybe some organizations. Yeah. They are very complicit in this, in the Land Commission and the Ministry of Lands. Yeah. They are the reason why we are at this stage. So when you have interferences or maybe work going on around these structures, they create interferences and noise, and these are picked in our transmission. So you cannot communicate effectively with pilots, and that is very dangerous. And also, if you allow high-rising buildings around these facilities, they block signals. And when they block signals, it means the signals cannot be received. So that is the danger in this issue. Yeah. And just last week ago, we have received a lot of complaints from some airlines about the difficulty in communicating with us. And not only complaints, but at a certain time, our system, some of our frequencies went off.
A very warm welcome back. And that was pretty interesting on AM Talk today, all the banter about, the political parties and the placement. But we have more coming your way. We have an exclusive with the only independent presidential candidate, Alfred Walker, number 12 on the ballot, speaking to Joy News editor Fred Smith. That's up next. Do enjoy.
First of all, I'll congratulate you for making the ballot. Not everyone was able to do that.
Thank you, Fred. I'm actually grateful to see you here today. I think we know each other. Certainly, I'm very, very pleased for the job that the EC has done. Clearly, the tension in this country has actually come down, and it's a testament for what her competency with her team, the few that I know of, Dr. Sribo and Mr. Tete, clearly their experience have come to bear. And I'm grateful for that issue.
We have less than 2 months to the election itself, and this is where the real work begins. Yes. Now that you've been confirmed as the presidential candidate, what are your plans?
Thank you.
Between now and the election day?
I believe, you see, what most people didn't know in this country is that we were doing an underground work. We have people already go door to door across the country. So now that we have made it, it was a cautionary issue to just be cautious not to jump the gun before the EC has actually computed the work. We've had some experiences prior. I believe my running mate brought his experience to bear, Mr. Jacob Aseboa, 2012, 2016. I also had an experience in 2016. So yes, it was a cautionary tale or a cautionary sort of work that we did. That no, there's no reason to jump the gun until we are sure of being on the ballot. So yes, a lot of groundwork, a lot of grassroots work had already gone, several times already, several months. So yes, we are now ready to unleash and actually show what we are ready to do for this country.
Who are part of this group?
Well, I think the United One Ghana movement is known in this country, doing a lot of work in the needy areas.
So certainly, we have welcomed several independents and like-minded people across the world, Ghanaians and the Ghanaians in the diaspora, the NGOs who have joined us and who support us. They may not have their faces known yet, but we will let the country know, very soon. Yes, we've also been counseled by several leaders of this country, eminent leaders, and also the spiritual leaders. They actually counseled us to come together. Mr. Joyce Jacob Osebua, who led that movement to bring us all together, actually done a very good job in doing so. And this is the results of what we're seeing here today.
You must demonstrate to Ghanaians who will be going to the polls what difference you bring to them as if they should vote for you. What is it that you're bringing that we haven't seen before?
Well, we're bringing experience of business-oriented results, international business-oriented results, solution-based results, not just talk. Empty talk has become the mantra in this country. Promises not fulfilled has become the issue of this country. We are not going to stand for that any longer. Ghanaians must take control of their industries. Ghanaians must take control of their assets. Ghanaians must take control of their employment. This is what we are going to bring to this country. There are desperation in the faces of these people. The whole Ghanaians, people are desperate. Young men, able-bodied men and women who are yearning for leadership. Their pain is going to be over because we are going to focus on those needs specifically. That's what we stand for.
Well, we've heard persons campaign with sweet messages, but once they win the election, the story changes.
Well,
how sure are we that you're not one of those?
You see, this is the story of the propaganda that those party politics, because it's their self-interest. Winner takes all, self-interest. Once they win, it becomes party loyalty to contracts, party loyalty to jobs. If you don't belong to the party, if you don't hold a card, if you are not a party member, you will not get a job or a contract. This is the reason why we chose to go independent. Independent for the fact that we are welcoming all Ghanaians qualified by merit who have Ghana at heart to actually help lead this country. And this is what we are going to embark on.
What would be your approach to solving the country's problem of corruption?
Well, I think I've said it in another forum that legal-wise, intent to defraud is criminal. And that is in the law books. Intent to defraud is criminal. Here we are a society where there's no accountability. You've arrested somebody. Clearly, you had evidence of the reason why you arrested him. Why should we wait and drag it in courts? And it's a ploy to delay, and hope it goes away. Therefore, nobody gets prosecuted. Nobody gets punished. It also leads into the party politics, where party loyalists, because they've wronged, are never prosecuted. No, we are going to change that narrative. It must be, really for Ghanaians, for all of us who have Ghana at heart, to tackle this corruption issue head on. And this is what we are going to do. No party loyalists in the independent candidate movement. So therefore, once you're wrong, guess what? We are not going to listen. Jamanica is not going to happen in our government.
You also have a vision of executing what you call regionalization. What exactly is involved with that?
Regionalization means, for example, today we have 16 regions. What if we have one cabinet minister at the presidency focused on that region alone and focused on that development?
You mean one minister responsible for regional development?
One minister for each region, not regional development, not for the whole. One minister for each region.
Don't we have that already?
Do they? What are they doing specifically? I don't believe they do. It's about MPs who are supposed to represent their communities. They sit in parliament and really we don't see the results. We are going to go into details of our policy of regions where the regions are going to stand on their own strength, their own management structure, oversight by the cabinet, the presidency, to make sure the resources